Chapter 37 to 38. Naruto and Hinata were both stirring as the sun was just coming up in the horizon. These few days were like vacation after 3 long years of training. It's not like they did nothing. They still did their morning workout routine, but the rest of the days were just spent relaxing and doing anything they might want. Morning, love, Naruto said, rolling on the bed to see the face on his girlfriend. Morning, Hinata replied, half asleep. Naruto was about to reply when he heard a deep sigh in his head. Something wrong? Naruto asked Kurama when he heard the sigh. I'm bored, Kurama replied, stretching his limbs. Amuse me, human, Kurama ordered, and Naruto's eyes twitched. Why don't you chase your tails? It should be 9 times funnier, Naruto rhetorically asked with a straight face. I am not amused, Kurama replied with his eyes twitching. I know exactly what to do, Naruto said with his eyes sparkling with mischief. Kuchios no Jutsu, summoning technique, Naruto said, going through hand seals and slamming his hand on the bed. Once the smoke had cleared, there was a chibi version of the Kyuubi. I'm still not amused, human, Kurama said, getting ready to devour Naruto. Not that he could in that body, since Naruto summoned him with low chakra amount. Kurama was at this point nothing bigger than a cat. Kawaii, Hinata screamed and proceeded to smother the chibi Kyuubi between her breasts. You can thank me later, you bastard, Naruto thought, looking at the suffocating Kyuubi. Kurama eventually managed to slip out from her grasp. I'm going for a walk, Kurama said, and Naruto nodded. Don't show yourself in the village. They hate foxes, and even though you are small you still have 9 tails, Naruto explained, and Kurama nodded, walking out of the room. Naruto turned around so he could rest for a little bit before he got up. Squeal. You're adorable, Hana cooed, running after the chibi Kurama. KKKIITTTTT, the seal, put me in the seal, hurry, Kurama yelled, running through the halls and away from the Hyuga. Are you not amused? Naruto yelled from his bedroom. I'll get you for this, Kurama yelled and proceeded to run through the kitchen, picking up Kushina and Mito after the adorable plushie. How come he was never this cute when he was with us? Kushina asked with stars in her eyes. I know, right? Mito replied, and she and Kushina proceeded to try and catch the fur ball to pet it to death. I have to say that form is more appealing than his real one, Minato said, remembering what happened 17 years ago. Morning, Naruto said, coming into the kitchen half asleep. Kurama easily outmaneuvered the 3 running ladies after him and jumped into Naruto's head. Alright, he had enough, Naruto said, ending the chase. Meanie, Kushina pouted, crossing her arms in front of her chest, making Minato chuckle. What are you doing today, Naruto? Minato asked, and Naruto got into a thinking pose while eating. Nothing, Naruto replied, and Minato's sweat dropped. Maybe some light training or pick up a mission since I haven't done anything since I got back, Naruto explained, and Minato nodded. Are you not entertained? Naruto asked Kurama, who proceeded to yip in response. Squeal. Here we go again, Naruto muttered under his breath as he watched Kurama ran away again. I command you to stop. I'm the Kyuubi, the strongest of all the 9 Bijou. I will not be manhandled. RRR, Kurama tried to roar, but nothing more than yipping sounds came out, making all the girls squeal and proceed to smother him again. Hashtag Konoha's gate, hashtag. It was a fresh new day in Konoha. Naruto, Hinata, and the rest of their family had just gotten home a couple days ago. Some poor genins were tasked with fixing what was left of the training ground they had used for their battle. Thanks to the barrier, most of the training grounds were okay, but the middle area needed some real terraforming. Man. I'm bored, Kotetsu said, tilting back on his chair, yawing and stretching his arms. Shouldn't you be a little more observant? Izumo asked, looking at his best friend's state. They still had a few hours in their shift as gate guards, but Kotetsu already seemed to be slacking off. Relax, Kotetsu replied, everything has been peaceful, so chill out a little, Kotetsu explained. We never know when something might happen, so be a little more alert. Izumo was explaining but was cut off by his partner. We will drop to the ground with so much effort, Kotetsu countered. I'm just saying, big things have small beginnings, Izumo wisely said. Suddenly they both felt 3 presences approaching the gates. Naturally, and like responsible guards on duty, they jumped into action to identify the possible threat. There were 3 incoming people. The one on the left, he had short, tufty blue hair, and dark eyes. He also had pointed, shark-like teeth. He was wearing square, black-rimmed glasses connected to ear protectors, a blue pinstriped shirt and camouflage pattern pants. Also, he wore his forehead protector on the front of his holster, which he uses to carry Hiramakarei. The sword itself is wrapped in bandages, leaving only the double hilt visible. He also has shuriken holsters strapped onto each of his legs. The person to the right was a middle-aged man with blue hair which is styled in a moused-up manner. His left eye was blue and his right eye was covered by an eye patch. He wore a talisman in each ear with the kanji. He also wore the standard striped, gray suit, with a green haori that had white trimmings that stop halfway down, over them. The last person was walking in the middle of both men. She was a slender woman in her 30s. She had green eyes, and ankle-length, auburn hair styled into a herringbone pattern at the back, a top knot tied with a dark blue band, and with 4 bangs at the front. 2 bangs are short, with one covering her right eye, and 2 are long, crossing each other on her bust, just below her chin. She was wearing a long-sleeved, dark blue dress that falls just below the knees. It seems to be closed at the front with a zip, and is kept open on the front right side from the waist down. The dress only covers up to the upper part of her arms and the underside of her breasts. Underneath, she wore a mesh armor that covers slightly more of her upper body than her dress. She also wears shorts in the same color as her dress and, underneath those, mesh leggings reaching down over her knees. Around her waist, she wears a belt with a pouch attached to the back on the left along with high-heeled sandals and shin guards reaching up over her knees, dark blue polish on her fingers and toes, and is usually shown with dark blue lipstick. What are shinobi of Kirigakure here? Kotetsu thought, placing himself as an obstacle. State your business in Konoha, Kotetsu said in a stoic and commanding voice. I assure you we mean no harm, Mei said, trying to defuse the situation before it could start. My name is Terumi Mei. To my left is Chojuro, Mei said, gesturing to her left side, and to my right is Ao, Mei said, gesturing to right, said, introducing Ao. We request an audience with your Godame Hokage, Senju Tsunade, Mei said with a friendly smile. If they had been on friendly terms or allied with Kiri, Kotetsu and Izumo would most likely gawk at the beauty in front of them, but not now. Why? Kotetsu simply asked. That is to be discussed in closed chambers with your Hokage, Mei stated, and Kotetsu nodded, calling an ANBU squad to escort the Kiri shinobi towards the Hokage tower. Hokage's office ##. Tsunade-sama, Shizen said, knocking on the door and stepping in. There are some Kirigakure shinobi who wish an audience with you, Shizen said, and Tsunade raised an eyebrow. I see, Tsunade replied, thinking what to do and what measures to take. How many are they? Tsunade asked. 3, Shizen replied. Only one can enter my office, the other 2 stay outside, Tsunade said, and Shizen nodded and went to inform them. ANBU, stay alert. I don't any trouble, Tsunade ordered and sat down on her chair when she heard 4 silence acknowledges. Outside of office Tsunade-sama will see you now, but only one of you may enter the room, Shizen explained, and Mei nodded. Ao, Chojuro, stay here, Mei said, and started walking towards the door when Ao voiced his thoughts. But Mei-sama, I'm uncomfortable leaving you alone in there, Ao explained, but Mei seemed to get the wrong words. You will never be comfortable alone, Mei thought to herself. Ao, Mei said, turning to him with a glare. Shut up or I'll kill you, Mei said, and Ao gulped, quickly nodding. Hokage's office ##. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice, Hokage-sama, Mei said, entering the office. I'm Terumi Mei, leader of the rebel forces in Kirigakure, Mei explained, and Tsunade nodded, motioning her to sit down. Not at all, Mei-san, Tsunade said, greeting her as well. So, what can I do for you? Tsunade asked, getting to the point of the meeting. I'm cutting through all the pleasantries. I came here to ask Konoha's help in winning the civil war, Mei said. I see, Tsunade said, tilting back in her chair and bringing her hands to her chin in thought. As you now, the current leader of Kirigakure, Yagura the Jinchuriki of the Sanbai, launched a bloodline purge in the village. Our forces are about even, but Yagura has full control over his bijou, giving their side a huge boost in strength. We can't attack in numbers because Yagura can wipe them all out. Currently we have about 4,000 shinobi in our side, while their side has about 6,000 plus Yagura, Mei stated, and Tsunade nodded. Why did you decide to come Konoha for help of all the other 3 great villages? Tsunade curiously asked. The reasons are very simple. Of all the 5 shinobi villages, Konoha and Kyumo are the closest, as I couldn't leave my forces for a long time without a leader. In fact, I came with 2 of our strongest shinobi since Yagura had already tried to assassinate me multiple times. Besides, Kyumo was always independent and preferred isolation, Mei explained, and Tsunade nodded. What's in it for us? Tsunade asked, curious to what Mei would answer. At this particular point Kiri didn't have much to offer. Nothing, Mei honestly answered. There is nothing we can offer at this point. But we could come to an alliance once we had one. As I currently see, Konoha is without any support from any other village since the failed Suna Sound invasion 3 years ago, Mei explained. So you want me to lend some shinobi so that they can face some blood-crazed Jinchuriki where your own shinobi can't face. And the best thing I get is an alliance, and that's if we win, Tsunade said, laying everything at the table. I guess it was a waste of time coming here, Mei thought, sadly sighing. I'm game, Tsunade said, retaking her posture in her chair. I understand. Wait, what? Mei asked, confused as to what she just heard. I said I'll lend you some help to your side, Tsunade said, and got eyes widened from Mei. Not to sound ungrateful, but why? Mei asked, confused. The moment I decided to come here, even I wasn't sure if you would lend us some help, Mei explained. First, Konoha loves bloodlines and I won't stand for their destruction since one day they might be used to strengthen my village. 2. Yagura is a Jinchuriki and I know someone who would interest in meeting the Sanbai. And 3 is because I want to help. Yagura was a fool for starting the bloodline purge, he's just massacring innocent people, Tsunade explained, and Mei dumbly nodded. Although she was happy she got help, even one shinobi was better than nothing. Shizen, Tsunade called out, and Shizen entered the office, summoned the Silver Dragon. Tsunade and Shizen nodded. Silver Dragon? Mei asked, curious. I created a group similar to the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. This group is called the 8 Dragons of the Leaf, and they are our elite fighting force. Most of them could give me a run for my money, Tsunade explained, and Mei's jaw dropped. Tsunade was lending her S-rank shinobi. Why dragons though? Mei asked, tapping her chin. We are in the fire country and dragons breath fire, Tsunade said offhandedly, and Mei's sweat dropped. Mei was hoping for something more deep than just that. Although they aren't all swordsmen like Kiri's group. Instead of an over-specialized group, they are our first response group to any threat. This group has taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu specialists, medic and poison expert, infiltration, assassination and information gathering experts, and also seal masters, Tsunade explained, and Mei could only nod. What's that? Mei asked when she felt the sudden chirka spike that emerged from outside the room. Hashtag with Naruto, minutes earlier hashtag. Erg, Naruto screamed in frustration, how the hell do you put this thing on? Naruto yelled to the heavens as he was trying to figure out how to place the damn Senju armor on. Calm down Naruto-kun, Hinata gently said, easing his frustrations. Let me help you, Hinata said, and Naruto reluctantly agreed. First you put the chest plate, Hinata said, placing the chest plate over Naruto's torso and securing it, then you plate the shoulder and neck armor, Hinata said, strapping the shoulder and neck armor, and finally the waist and leg armor, Hinata said. Finally, Naruto said, sighing, what would I do without you? Naruto asked, pulling Hinata closer. Crash and burn, Hinata replied, leaning in and kissing him before Naruto placed the mask over his face. Naruto picked his fan and placed it behind his back and was finally all geared up. See you later, Naruto said and swirled away. Both of them never noticed that both Minato and Kushina were watching the pair. We missed so much, Kushina said, sobbing while Minato just pulled her closer. Don't worry Kushina-chan, we are here now, Minato softly said. He doesn't need us anymore. He's all grown up and even has a beautiful girl by his side. I wanted to be there when he took his first step, when he unlocked his chakra. I wanted to be there when he got scared from the monster inside the closet, Kushina sobbed. I wanted to, but it wasn't meant to be. We did the best we could with the choices we were given, Minato sadly replied. Don't worry, Hinata said, coming towards them, while you may never have those moments, there will come others. Besides, it was his choice to bring you back, Hinata said. After all, he never had a decent closet, Hinata tried to joke and Kushina just chuckled, wiping away a few tears. He's so lucky to have found you, Kushina said, hugging Hinata while Minato left so that they could be alone. Let me tell you some stuff from when we were growing up, Hinata said, and both sat down. One time we were. Hashtag Hokage's office hashtag. Naruto came from his dimension just outside of the Hokage tower. He stepped inside and made his way towards Tsunade's office. He easily arrived there and both Ao and Chojuro were stationed there as if guarding the room. Naruto approached the door and motioned to the handle to open it until Ao placed his arm in front of Naruto, blocking his path. You can't enter the Hokage's office, Ao simply said, and Naruto raised an eyebrow behind his mask. And why is that? Naruto asked stoically. There is meeting in progress. I can't allow you to enter the room, Ao replied. I was called and you have no authority here, Kirinin, Naruto simply said and tried to enter the room only to have Ao place a hand on his shoulder. You won't enter this room, Ao firmly said, and Chojuro gulped, grabbing the hilt of his sword. Naruto caught Chojuro's sudden movement and interpreted it as an attack. Naruto sighed and caught Ao's hand, twisting it and bringing his arm behind his back, pinning him to the ground. Chojuro tried to swing his still-sealed sword but made the mistake of looking at Naruto's eyes, through the mask holes, who had the Sharingan blazing. Chojuro was frozen in place. What is going on here? Tsunade roared, opening the door. They barred me entrance into your office, Hokage-sama. I'm just cleaning up, Naruto replied while Mei went towards Chojuro, who kneeled and fell to the floor. Stand down, Silver. They are Mei's bodyguards. Come inside so you can be briefed on your next appointment, Tsunade said, and Naruto nodded, releasing Ao from his arm lock and breaking Chojuro's genjutsu. My apologies, Hokage-sama, Mei said, but Tsunade waved her off. Come inside everyone, Tsunade said, and everyone re-entered the office, all the while Ao was looking at Naruto trying to figure him out. He's fast, and he disabled Chojuro with a simple glance, Ao thought to himself. Hashtag inside the Hokage's office, hashtag. Now that everyone has calmed down, let me explain your mission, Tsunade said towards Naruto. Mei was carefully studying the masked man in front of her. He certainly holds himself as someone very strong. Not to mention the fact that he disabled Chojuro and Ao at the same time. Mei thought to herself, looking at the silver dragon. He was wearing a black suite with silver-colored Senju-styled armor over it. On the chest plate was emblazed a dragon. He had long spiky yellow hair and was wearing a white mask with dark silver random designs over it. On his back he had a fan. What's the mission, Hokage-sama? Naruto asked respectfully, trying to hide his identity as best as he could. Your mission is as it follows, Tsunade started, assemble the dragons and help Mei-san into winning the civil war in Kirigakure. You are under her command until the end of the war and you will follow any orders unless it conflicts with Konoha's or your own safety. Understood? Tsunade asked. Understood, Hokage-sama, Naruto replied. Mei-san will inform you as you travel towards Kiri, Tsunade explained, and Naruto nodded, turning to Mei. When are we leaving, Mei-san? Naruto asked. As soon as possible, Mei stated, getting up from her chair. Then I shall meet with you at the gate in 2 hours, Naruto said and swirled away. I can't thank you enough, Hokage-sama, Mei said, bowing. Not at all. Just make sure no one dies, Tsunade said, and Mei thanked her again before leaving her office and heading towards the gates where she would wait for her backup. Hashtag Senju compound, hashtag. Dragons, Naruto's voice echoed through the compound. Gear up, we deploy in 2 hours, Naruto said. Finally a mission, Hashirama said, rushing towards his armor. Always the hothead, Tobirama replied. You are always bickering, you two, Mito said, picking up her large red scroll and attaching it to her back. Thank God, Kushina said, sighing. I know, I was getting bored as well, Minato stated, picking his 3-pronged kunais from the armory. Let's go, Gaara said, shifting into his brown armor. Are you ready, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked, helping her get into the armor. Yes, Hinata simply replied, sealing everything in her wrists' bracelets. 2 hours later every dragon was at the Senju compound's entrance, all in battle gear. Hashtag Konoha's gates, hashtag. All 3 Kiri shinobi were waiting impassively for the arrival of the dragons. The group wasn't late per se, but Mei was very anxious to meet the group that Tsunade lent them. If what Tsunade said was true and most of them were S-ranked shinobi, then her victory was mostly certain. S-rank shinobi are extremely powerful and deadly. Their jutsus are on a completely different scale than the standard chunin or jounin. A single S-rank shinobi is worth almost 100 standard jounins and even more chunins. This particular level of skill is very hard to come by, and that's the reason why there are so few around. Kumogakure currently has 4 S-rank shinobi, being A, the Reikage, B, the Hachibi Jinchuriki, Uchito, the Nibi Jinchuriki, and Darui, the Sandame Reikage apprentice, wielder of the Black Lightning. Iwagakure is highly secretive about their shinobi. While they are always up to demonstrating their power over the other villages, there isn't much known information about them. The only known S-rank shinobi currently attached to the village is Inoki, the Sandame Tsuchikage, wielder of the Dust Release, capable of disintegrating anything, including shinobi. The Sand Village is another mystery. Even before the invasion 3 years ago they were still secretive, even with Konoha allied with them. Currently they do not possess any definitive S-rank shinobi. They have Chio, a consular that was renowned for their mastery in puppetry, but the old age has finally caught up to her. They also have Baki, the Godame Kazekage. While not a S-rank shinobi, he isn't that far away. Then we have Kirigakure. Their shinobi are renowned for remarkable kenjutsu and water jutsus. They possess more sensors than any other village out there. The reason as to why that is unknown. The only S-rank shinobi currently fighting in the loyalist or the rebel sides are Yagura, Yonde Mizukage and the Sanbai Jinchuriki, and Terumi Mei, the rebel leader. There are a few others elite jounins like Ao and Chojuro, but they don't reach the S-rank title yet. Konoha also has their fair share of powerful shinobi. They have Senju Tsunade, Godame Hokage, her grandson Senju Naruto, Jinchuriki of Kyubi no Yoko and wielder of the Sharingan bloodline, Jiraiya the Toad Sage, Hataki Kakashi, son of White Fang, Hyuga Hinata, apprentice of Senju Tsunade, and Sarutobi Hiruzen, who despite his old age he's still very powerful. While S-ranked shinobi are very powerful and a huge asset to any village, they also tend to be unstable. They are so powerful that they tend to go up against their leaders, which often result in them becoming missing ninja as they run away from their village. That's the reason as to how the Akatsuki organization was born. Usually S-ranked shinobi only band together when there is someone stronger than them giving orders. Each village only has a handful of S-ranked shinobi since the end of the clan wars. These times of peace had somewhat lowered the level of the shinobi. During the clan wars the life expectancy was nothing more than their 20s and you had to be strong to survive. Even more than now. Now Konoha suddenly has, not only the known S-ranked shinobi but they also have another 8 S-ranked shinobi whose identity is classified. This was a major boost to their strength and even more since they managed to hide them from the other villages. If what Tsunade said was true, then this group could easily conquer any other village out there. You would need around 200 to 300 shinobi to match the power of a single Kage level shinobi. And this Kage level shinobi could wipe them all out without much effort. Sorry if we are late, Naruto said as every single dragon landed in front of Mei, all lined up in perfect formation. Not at all. You are right on time, Mei said. I'm Terumi Mei, leader of the rebel forces. My right-hand man is Ao and to my left is Chojuro, Mei explained, and everyone nodded. Now it's our turn, Naruto said and pointed towards the beginning of the group. He's the green dragon, he's a sensor, taijutsu and ninjutsu specialist, Naruto said pointing towards Hashirama, who was wearing a dark forest green armor with a mask with the same color. Next to him is the black dragon. She's our seal master, Naruto explained, and Mei nodded. Next to her is the blue dragon. Sensor, water and space-time ninjutsu specialist, Naruto explained, and Mei raised an eyebrow. Space-time techniques were very rare and to find someone who specialized in that was even rarer. He's the yellow dragon. Taijutsu monster, extremely fast, standard and space-time ninjutsu specialist as well seal master, Naruto explained, and at this point Mei could only nod. Next to him is the red dragon. She's our kenjutsu expert and quite fast as well. She's a seal master as well as wind ninjutsu specialist, Naruto said and turned to Gaara. Next we have the brown dragon. He was a special bloodline that allows him to control sand, Naruto said. Next to me is the purple dragon. She's a taijutsu expert, highly skilled in water ninjutsu. Medical and poison specialist, infiltration, assassination and information gathering specialist, Naruto explained, and Hinata blushed beneath her mask with so much praise her Naruto-kun gave her. And finally me, the leader of 8 dragons of the leaf. I'm an expert at everything, from taijutsu to ninjutsu, genjutsu, stealth, assassination, kenjutsu, and so on, Naruto explained, and all 3 Kirinin could only nod. Excellent, Mei started. Our objective is to win the civil war and end this bloodshed. Let's move out, Mei said, and everyone jumped towards the Mist Village. No one really knows how it began, the bloodline purge, that is. One only knows rumors and whispers that town folk spread around. Some say that Yagura himself suddenly woke up and decided to exterminate all living bloodline users because they posed a major threat to his leadership and regime. Some say that Yagura decided to purge every single bloodline shinobi after the Kagaya attack a few years ago. One night the Kagaya clan decided to simply attack the Mist Village, their own village to begin with. While most shinobi blamed them for being some blood-crazed clan, Yagura persuaded his shinobi to the opposite. Instead of accepting that the Kagaya clan was, for lack of a better word, mental. Yagura spawned the theory that every skirmish and war was because of bloodlines. The bloodline would affect the shinobi, turning them into nothing more than a beast looking for blood and flesh. The people in Kiri were then blinded by their pain and hatred for the Kagaya attack that they believed in their leader without question. And thus began the bloodline purge. For years Yagura and his loyalist army composed of thousands of non-bloodline users started hunting down and killing every single bloodline user they found. That's the reason as to why Kiri was cut off from the other great villages for so many years. They had some internal problems to deal with. The bloodline users were forced to band together and leave the village if they wanted to survive. Terumi Mei rose through the ranks and became the indisputable leader of the rebel side of the army. Mei commands around 4,000 shinobi who are fighting to regain back their home. But the worst part is that they are fighting people they once considered comrades, friends, lovers. After years of skirmish, battles, blood and many deaths, Mei decided to turn towards the great shinobi villages to ask for aid to their cause. Mei decided to ask Konoha, the strongest of the 5 great villages, for help. She was lucky that her prayers were answered and she was given 8 hardened and strong shinobi to fight for her cause. The dragons had just introduced themselves to the rebel leader, Terumi Mei. Everyone was geared up and ready for their travel and fight against Yagura's tyrant regime. With a small wave of hand every single shinobi blurred out of Konoha heading towards the mist village. The trees seemed like blurs as everyone was moving fast. Mei had already left for a few days and it wasn't good the leader to be absent for long periods of time. Mei was leading the group. She was being flanked on the left by one of her bodyguards Chojuro and to her right-hand man, Ao. Mei was extremely pleased with the help she got and couldn't wait for the war to be over. Chojuro was a bit fearful. He could feel that they were powerful shinobi and could only hope that they didn't turn on them. Ao was another story. He didn't trust them in any way whatsoever. The little digression he had the dragon leader, Silver, only seemed to increase it. Something didn't feel right with these dragons. The 7 swordsmen of the mist never needed any masks to cover their faces. All this secrecy was driving him mad. Ao brought his right hand and made half the tiger seal. Ao focused chakra into his eye, the one covered by the black eye patch. His eyes suddenly glowed white and his veins bulged out slightly, but everything was hidden by the patch. Ao gasped when he saw just what type of shinobi they were. They are monsters, every single one of them, Ao thought to himself, gasping for air, trying to keep his cool and not alert them. Their chakra levels were through the roof. The member with the lowest amount of chakra was the purple dragon and even her had Haikage level reserves. Ao nearly fainted when he noticed just the amount of chakra the leader of the dragons had. The silver dragon's chakra seemed different from the standard, his chakra was brighter than most and his reserves were on par with Bijou themselves. The silver dragon had more chakra than Hashigaki Kisame, who was renowned as the tailless Bijou. Ao focused his Byakugan in trying to see through the masks and find out the identity of these powerful shinobi. You know, Silver started, you already have something that belongs to Konoha, don't push your luck by trying to find our identity, Silver said in a monotone voice, making Ao flinch. I don't know what you are referring to, Silver-san, Ao replied as he regained his composure. Mei just listened to the conversation quietly. Don't play games with me, Silver warned, I know that you have a Byakugan eye behind that eye patch, Silver explained and Ao's single eye widened. Don't look so surprised. When we introduced ourselves I believe I explained that half of us are sensors. We realized what you had hidden beneath your eye patch the moment you turned it on, Silver explained and Ao was sweating at this point. Don't misunderstand us, Silver said in a calmer voice, we don't intend to remove your eye, but we wear masks for a purpose, Silver explained and Ao sighed in relief. I understand and appreciate it, Ao replied and Silver nodded turning to Mei. I believe it's best for us to be informed of your current situation, Silver said and Mei nodded gathering her thoughts. Currently we have around 4,000 bloodline users in the rebel army. Yagura is the Jinchuriki of the Sanbai, he has full control over his Bijou and he controls the Mist Village along with near 6,000 non-bloodline shinobi. Mei started. As you most likely know, Water Country is formed by multiple islands. The biggest island, located in the center of the country, is where the Mist Village is. This island is surrounded by several other where there are several outposts. Our army is spread out between 2 islands which we managed to capture the strongholds, Mei explained. We can't push forward into the main island without taking over the other 3 remaining strongholds first and even then it will very difficult. Yagura has full control over his Bijou and can obliterate the army if we attack in numbers. However there isn't anyone strong enough to face Yagura on his own, not even me, Mei finished sadly. The rebel said had fought for years but nothing seemed to change. If your main problem is Yagura then with us he shouldn't be a problem, Silver started noticing the incredulous look on Mei's face. There was a reason as to why Bijou were so important to nations. They were the real army killers, the Jinchuriki when properly trained could wipe hundreds of shinobi in the blink on an eye and they were hard to kill. Our group has 4 seal masters, but above else, Silver trailed off and he motioned Green to do a little show off. Green chuckled and clapped his hands together in the snake seal. A tree popped from the ground, giving Green another step to further his jump. Emokutan would release, Mei whispered, staring the green-colored dragon. She couldn't see it, but she knew he was laughing like crazy behind that mask. Though only Senju Hashirama could use the Mokutan, Mei said, shocked by the events. Well, the green dragon can do it just as well as Hashirama could back in the day, Silver replied, chuckling to himself. To think that Konoha had another Mokutan user in hiding, Mei said, chuckling, not to mention another Senju clan member, Mei said in afterthought. As you see, the Senju clan is still strong and not some dying breed, Silver explained, chuckling, as he was also member of the Senju clan, but Mei didn't know that. Hi, Mei replied, and everyone rushed even faster with renewed spirits. Hashtag few days later, missed country border hashtag. Here we are, Mei said as they arrived near the border. The last few days of travels were uneventful. I advise some caution as we are about to enter the mist country and it's still controlled by Yagura, Mei warned, and everyone nodded. I have a question, the purple dragon said, and Mei motioned her to go on. Why didn't the water daimyo intercede when this civil war started? Purple asked. I mean, he should know that a divided village would weaken the entire country. It's just by luck that the other nations were still weak from the Third Shinobi War, or they might considered conquering the mist, Purple stated. It was of no use when we tried to talk to the daimyo, Mei sadly said. This all began when the Kagaya clan attacked. Their members were always bloodthirsty and they didn't seem sane. One day the Kagaya attacked the mist village, their own home to begin with. Some members of this clan had a special Kekiai Genkai that allowed them to manipulate bones, Mei said, but Silver interrupted her. Shikatsu Miyaku, dead bone pulse, I killed the last of the Kagayas 3 years ago, Silver said, sighing, and Mei knew that killing was never easy, but knowing that it'd be the end of a clan, it would be worse. Only a few members of this clan were able to the dead bone pulse, but these few were extremely strong and very hard to kill. After the bloodbath, Yagura announced the bloodline purge with the daimyo's support. And the rest is history, Mei concluded, and Ao sighed. I wonder what kind of leader slaughters their own men. While I agree he should protect his own village at any cost, no one in their right mind would do something like this, Green said in afterthought. No one really knows why he chose to do it, Mei started. Yagura was always a good leader. He was kind and warm to his people and, even though he was a Jinchuriki, his village still loved him and chose him as their leader, Mei explained. She as well couldn't understand how someone could change like this, but she guessed that pain can change a lot of things. Pain changes people, Silver said in a monotone voice. Kushina looked towards Naruto with concern. Naruto had told her that in the beginning, Konoha hated him, but she didn't think they were physical towards him. Man. It's foggy, Green said. The fog is a natural defense of the mist country. Our shinobi are born in it and, as such, they are used to living in these conditions, Mei explained, and Green nodded, although he already knew that. This damn country is still foggy, even after so many years, Green thought. Sizzle. Trap, Silver yelled, and everyone jumped away and landed together nearby. Boom. The place where they were exploded, blowing away the mist and creating a crater on the ground. Suetun, Mizurappa, wild water wave, multiple voices shouted. Everyone looked to their sides to see a gigantic water wave coming to crush them all. Brown, Silver yelled, and Brown, Gaara, nodded. Sand started flowing from inside his seals and created a protective dome around them. The water crashed against the sand and did nothing but shake it a little bit from the impact. Once Brown had let the sand down, a group of shinobi jumped in front of Mei and the dragons. Looks like the information was right, the apparent leader of the group stated. You really went to recruit more monsters to fight, the leader said, scowling. How did they find out? Ao asked, confused. You most likely have a spy in your army, Silver stated, getting ready for combat, his eyes glowing red behind his mask. The enemy had severely underestimated them. They had sent a mere 10-member ambush squad against 11 trained shinobi. Ketan, Goka Mekyaku, Great Fire Annihilation, Silver said as his hands blurred towards the horse seal. He unleashed a wall of flames against the opposition, who scrambled to get away from the flames. Futon, Detapa, Great Breakthrough, Purple said, taking a deep breath and releasing a gust of wind, powering up the flame's speed and intensity. Attack Formation E, Silver stated, and every dragon nodded, going to their respective positions. Mei, Ao, and Chojuro just watched from the sidelines Konoha's elite fighting force at work. The opposing Kiri shinobi knew that they could never get away from the wall of flames. The range was simply far too great and even more once powered by a wind attack. Suetun, Suijin Hiki, water wall, the Kiri force shouted as they unleashed water from their mouths to counteract the fire. Naruto's fire attack was simply too strong to be stopped by standard water defensive techniques. The fire easily evaporated the water and bypassed their defenses. Two unlucky Kiri shinobi were used as meat shields while the others took the opportunity to jump away. Sand binding, brown, Gaara, whispered as he crouched, placing his hands on the ground. Chain style, chain forest, red, Kushina, whispered crouching on the ground as well. Mokutan, would release, piercing stakes, green shouted and he clasped his hands together. Several trees sprouted from the ground and blurred towards the shinobi opposition. The Kiri shinobi tried to jump away but found themselves with their feet trapped. They looked to the ground to find sand and chains wrapped around their feet. The trees continued on their path and pierced most of shinobi, killing them all almost instantly. Mei, Ao, and Chojuro had their jaws on the ground. These dragons had just decimated 10 shinobi that weren't fresh and out of the academy. Yagura wouldn't send some lowly skilled shinobi against Mei, Ao, and Chojuro. To kill these three it would require shinobi of above average skill. That was over way too quickly. I didn't even get to use my sword, red, Kushina, pouted while Silver noticed one shinobi who managed to survive and jump away trying to get away. Deva path, Bansho Tenin, Silver said pointing his right hand palm towards the fleeing shinobi. Silver's eyes were glowing silver behind his mask. The shinobi froze mid-air and started flying towards Silver, who caught him by the throat and slammed him against the ground. Green, if you please, Silver said, and Green nodded, using a few trees to pin the Kiri shinobi to the ground. The Kiri shinobi was kneeling on the ground with trees attached to the legs and both arms. Why you, pant, might as well, pant, kill me, I'll never talk, the Kiri shinobi panted, trying to ready himself for possible torture. He himself was already bleeding from 2 punctures wounds because of the wood and had several burn marks. He wouldn't last much longer. You don't have to, Silver said, walking towards the Kiri shinobi and placing his hand on top of his head. Human path, Silver said, and everything the Kiri shinobi ever knew, learned, and experienced flowed into Silver's mind. Is he a Yamanaka? Mei wondered in thought as she watched Silver concentrate and enter the enemy's mind. They never knew of any Yamanaka that was this powerful, much less with such chakra capacity. You do have a spy in your army. Yagura himself said so when he briefed this team to the ambush mission. Although he's way too low in the food chain to know any relevant information, Silver said before another thought came into his mind. Let's even the playing field, Silver said, taking a few steps back. Naraka path, Silver said, pointing his arm to an empty spot on the ground. Suddenly a massive head sprouted from the ground surrounded by purple flames. It was the King of Hell and Silver had summoned him. What the hell is that? Ao yelled, taking a step back, making Chojuro grasp his sword. Silver, what are you doing? Yellow, Minato, asked, curious as to what his son was doing. Is he going to heal the enemy shinobi? Yellow thought. Suddenly a bright green light started glowing in the King of Hell's mouth and flew into the Kiri shinobi. The Kiri shinobi's body started glowing and all of his wounds started healing. The flesh started mending itself together. His bones snapped to their proper location. Once the blood had been swiped away from his skin, the Kiri shinobi stood there perfectly healed. What? How? Why did you do this? The Kiri shinobi asked, completely confused as to what happened. Nothing you will remember, Silver said, walking towards the Kiri shinobi and crouching in front of him. Look into my eyes, Silver said with his manjikyu glowing behind his mask. The Kiri shinobi's eyes widened and he let out a gasp and he was drawn and frozen, staring into Silver's eyes. The Sharingan, that's how he placed Chojuro in a genjutsu with just a glance, Ao thought, shocked by the revelation. Of course, long blonde hair, the eye contact, entering the another's mindscape, the fan on his back. Mei thought to herself, chuckling. You are a loyal shinobi to Terumi, Mei. You don't hate the bloodline users. You infiltrated Yagura's army as a spy under Mei's orders. Understood? Silver asked, and the Kiri shinobi simply nodded. His eyes were blank and dead. Koto Amatsukami, Silver said, completing his technique and making the Kiri shinobi blink slowly as his eyes regained their usual brown color. Green released the wooden tentacles and the Kiri shinobi quickly rose. He walked calmly and kneeled before Mei. What are your orders, Mei-sama? The Kiri shinobi said, kneeling in front of her with his head lowered. What did you do? Mei asked, completely bewildered. This was my most powerful illusion. This illusion is so powerful that the victim doesn't even know he's being affected. It allows me to enter my opponent's mind and manipulate them by giving them false experiences, making it seem as if they were doing things of their own free will. It is regarded as a genjutsu of the highest class due to the victim being entirely unaware that they are being manipulated, Silver explained, rising, and May gulped. Though I can only apply it to weak-minded people. Shinobi with strong minds can try and fight it. To them it would end as a clash of my mind against theirs, Silver explained, and everyone let out a sigh of relief, minus Chojuro of course, who was still shaking. You live to the expectation, Senju Naruto, May said with an amused tone, making everyone freeze except Naruto, who chuckled. How did you find out? Naruto asked as he removed his silver mask. Blood-red Sharingan eyes looking towards May. That Yamanaka-styled jutsu did throw me off, but when I heard you saying, look into my eyes, and that fan on your back, coupled with your blonde hair made it hard to be mistaken, May explained. It lasted longer than I thought it would, Naruto said, chuckling while the rest of the dragons shook their heads. Tsunade-sensei is going to be pissed, purple, Hinata thought. So you Uchiha Madara's grandson, Ao said, stepping forward and looking straight into Naruto's Sharingan eyes. Why does everyone instantly says my gramp's name? Naruto rhetorically asked. I mean, Senju Hashirama and my father Namake's Minato were legends on their own right, Naruto stated. Yes, but Madara outshone them, Ao simply replied. I tamed the 9 Bijou and formed the village system / I killed a battalion of shinobi with a single jutsu, Hashirama and Minato both thought, drawing circles on the ground while both redheads tried to comfort their husbands. What's your name? May asked towards the kneeling shinobi. Han replied. The ambush has failed since we had help from Konoha. You are to continue your spy work. Report every week or when you find pertinent news, May ordered. As you wish, May-sama, Han answered and quickly turned to leave and report to his leader, Yagura. They were smart enough to ambush us in the border, Blue stated. Yagura is no fool. Even he knows that he can't face Konoha as of right now, and ambushing us in the Fire Country territory could be a deadly mistake, May replied. Let's continue. We are close to our main base, May said, and everyone nodded. ### few days later ###. During the last few days everything changed in the Mist Country. Everyone in the rebel side was extremely pleased to see the help that Konoha had sent them. Senju Tsunade had even sent her own grandson, Senju Naruto, to help. Not that the others dragons did nothing, but they needed a public face strong enough to boost the morale. And who anyone better than a member of both the Senju and Uchiha's clan? The rebels had come out on top of every single skirmish during the last few days. Due to Naruto, Yellow and Blue's space-time techniques, they were able to be present everywhere. Every battalion was gifted with kunais, each one keyed to either Naruto, Yellow or Blue. So when the battalion was in trouble with their battle front, they would throw the kunai into the middle of the enemy. Several flashes later and the skirmish was won. Coupling everything with Hinata's remarkable medical capabilities, the war had shifted with the rebel getting the upper hand. Slowly but surely, the rebel side began pushing the loyalists back on all fronts. It was time to start conquering the 3 remaining strongholds so that they could start pushing towards the Mist Village itself. May and Ao were standing in the middle of a room with several cartographic maps planning the resistance's next move. How is the approach looking? Naruto asked as he came into the room. Not good at all. These forts were built to last and withstand heavy siege, May said, sighing. I could blow it up from a distance, Naruto said, and Ao looked at him like he grew a second head. What? Naruto asked rhetorically. I'm the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Yoko. I can send a tailed beast ball and blow the stronghold sky high, Naruto explained, and Ao's sweat dropped. I would like to have my village in one piece when we are done with this war, thank you very much, May stated, and Naruto chuckled. Each stronghold is built to be both a prison and an impenetrable castle. The walls are of hard stone and the gates are made of chakra reinforced wood, May explained. Can't we just climb the walls? Naruto asked, but May shook her head. Due to this country's climate, those walls have small layers of water, making it very difficult to climb to ordinary shinobi. The chakra control required is very high. Besides, they have sentries on every tower 24 hours a day. They would spot us a mile away, May answered, nursing her head. Storming these strongholds was always a pain in the butt. They managed to get the last 2 by overwhelming them with numbers. How about we go from underneath with a few Doton users? Naruto asked, but May shook her head once again. Then I'll go in alone and open the gates from the inside, Naruto said as he memorized the terrain from the map using his Sharingan. I don't need to climb walls to enter the fort, Naruto said, and May raised an eyebrow. My space-time techniques are on a whole new level. I can easily walk through walls and other barriers, Naruto explained, and to demonstrate he started sinking into the ground and reappeared behind Mei. Send yellow and purple to the other strongholds while I take the main one. They are the best at stealth and should be able to sneak in easily, Naruto explained, and Mei nodded. According to Han, Yagura is gathering the main army in the village. He seems to already be expecting for us to be able to conquer these strongholds before advancing, Mei said, and Naruto nodded. Let's gear up for the siege, Naruto said, and everyone left the room. Next day. Is everything ready? Naruto asked Mei. Since she was the commander of the troops, it was her job to coordinate everything. The troops are ready to storm the stronghold once the gate is open. They are about 500 meters away from it, shrouded by the mist, Mei explained, and Naruto nodded. Yellow, purple, Naruto called out, get ready. Coordinate your siege with Ao and Chojuro, Naruto said, and they both nodded. Naruto then turned to the rest of the dragons. Red, green and blue, you are with the Ao's troops into storming Yellow's stronghold. Black and brown, you are with Chojuro's troops, Naruto ordered, and everyone nodded, walking away into their respective positions. Purple, Naruto called out, and she walked towards him. I'm delivering you the closest I can to the castle, Naruto said, and she nodded. Naruto discreetly handed her a three-pronged kunai. You be careful, alright, and call me if you need, Naruto whispered in a gentle voice. Don't worry so much, Naruto-kun, Purple replied, taking the kunai and putting it in her pockets. Of course I worry, Naruto said, and grabbed Purple by the waist, flashing away. So she's Hyuga Hinata, interesting, Mei concluded to herself once she caught a glimpse of the intimate moment between the purple dragon and Naruto. Just from that small glance she could see that they were very close and that Naruto held her safety above everything. Northern Stronghold ##. It was a very dark night. The many clouds that there were, covered the whole sky, blocking the stars and the small light coming from the moon. Night was the ally of the shinobi. The shinobi were trained assassins, sound was their enemy, the darkness their friend. The only thing visible were the torches on the stronghold and a pair of blood-red eyes glowing in the dark as they scanned the surroundings. Mei shivered as she looked towards Naruto. It was so dark that it was difficult to see in much detail anything coming from Naruto, but she could clearly see his eyes. Those blood-red eyes with three tomos shining and swirling in the night. Those eyes that seemed to belong to demons. Those eyes were scanning everything as if looking for prey, those eyes belonged to hunters. Naruto, Mei were standing just outside of the stronghold with 1,000 shinobi behind them. They were about to siege the biggest and strongest of the 5 strongholds. This one was different from the other from the fact that it was not only bigger but housed more shinobi inside. Unlike the others where the shinobi just took shifts, this stronghold actually housed living quarters and had full-time shinobi working and guarding it. The other must have already began their attack. I'm moving into position, Naruto said, and Mei nodded. Naruto swirled away and Mei turned to her troops and let them know to get ready. Naruto reappeared outside of the stronghold's walls. He leaned against the wall, being shrouded by the darkness and enveloped by the shadows of the night. One of the benefits of the Sharingan was night vision. Naruto could see at night just as he could see during the day. The fact that his vision was black and white with only chakra having color didn't seem to bother him much. Naruto did a quick head count and counted 10 sentries. 4s were standing inside for tall towers overlooking the plains in front of them, while the remaining 6 guards were patrolling the walls. Naruto pondered what to do. Should he kill the sentries and then go for the gate, or simply bypass them all and open the gates without them even knowing? Naruto opted for the first. If he took the sentries and then opened the gates, the army would be able to approach the stronghold and enter it without being detected. Yagura's men wouldn't know what happened until the rebels were already inside the castle, and then it would be too late. Naruto quickly formed a mental plan. He swirled away and appeared in each tower just behind the enemies. Naruto covered the enemy's mouth with his hand. The enemy shinobi's eyes widened when he saw a black spear appear from Naruto's other hand going for his neck. He quickly killed them, stabbing them in the throat so that they couldn't scream and alert anyone. With the main sentries gone, he made his way to kill the wall guards. Using the sentry tower as a vantage point, Naruto quickly scanned the inside of the stronghold. He was lucky. The only guards seemed to be at the towers and outer walls. Inside everything was quiet as most shinobi were most likely still sleeping and some few getting ready for a shift change. Naruto threw a single 3-pronged kunai into the air and watched it sail through the air. As the kunai sailed, Naruto flashed towards the kunai and appeared in a yellow flash mid-air. The guards only saw a small glint as several shurikens came flying towards them, killing them swiftly. Naruto quickly disposed of the bodies by burying them using a small earth jutsu, because otherwise using a fire jutsu could alert the enemy. Once the enemies had been dealt, Naruto stealthily entered the inside houses of the stronghold. Naruto thanked the heavens by being a sensor, thus allowing him to find enemies more easily. After all, while the Sharingan was an excellent weapon, it didn't allow him to see through walls like the Byakugan could. Naruto walked through the corridors but used the ceiling. One of the things that Jiraiya had taught him is that people very rarely look up. Naruto quietly chuckled when he saw a patrol of 2 shinobi just walk by without even detecting him. Naruto saw some lights coming from one of the rooms of the hall. Naruto used his kamui and phased through the walls. He ended up in the medical ward of the room. Keeping inside of the wall, he noticed that were a few guards in the room, which didn't make sense to him unless the medics were prisoners and working against their will. Couple that with a heavy atmosphere and the smell of fear, and Naruto was certain of that. Naruto made a single shadow clone and positioned him behind the other guard, as Naruto wouldn't be able to take one out without the other noticing it. Thump. Every medic inside the ward turned around to see both guards plummet to the ground. They were shocked to see a blonde man with Sharingan eyes standing in the middle of the room. Every medic took a step back, thinking they were about to suffer the same fate as the guards. "I can get you all out of here," Naruto said, looking at them. There are about 10 medics, all dressed in the standard white garb. "We are about to storm this stronghold, and in the midst of the fight you might get killed," Naruto explained, and one medic took a step forward. "Thank you for saving us," the woman said. She had an apparent normal face with dark hair and pitch black eyes. "My name is Now," Now said, and Naruto nodded. Naruto created a shadow clone and gathered all of the medics in one small group. In a single flash of yellow, everyone had left. Naruto made a few shadow clones and had the hinged into the medics and the 2 guards to make sure that if someone appeared they wouldn't suspect anything. Hashtag outside with Mei hashtag. Mei was startled by the sudden yellow flash that appeared right next to her. Mei turned to see the new coming and noticed it was Naruto and what appeared to be 10 medics. They were prisoners being forced as medics. "I'm just a clone that was sent to deliver them." "Boss is almost at the gate," Naruto said, and Mei nodded as Naruto dispelled in smoke. "Show them to the medical stations," Mei ordered, and the medics were led towards the medical tents. No one ever noticed the small smirk on Nao's face and the glow of red with black markings appearing in her eyes. Hashtag back in the stronghold hashtag. Once Naruto had left the medical ward, he continued through the long corridor until he found the exit that led to the outer ring of the stronghold. Naruto looked forward and spotted the gate a bit far away. He contemplated what method he would use to open gate, was it didn't seem particularly easy. The gate had heavy weights and it would require at least 3 people to open it. Mei was right when she said that the gate was reinforced with chakra, as Naruto could see small traces of it running through the wood. Naruto wanted to open the gate without making noise because it would make the rebels approach easier. "No other way," Naruto said as he swirled away and arrived near the gate. Naruto placed his hand on the wood and a large array started crawling from his hands and spreading through the wood. By the design it was a standard explosive tag but magnified a few times. Naruto finished the seal and pumped chakra to charge it up. Naruto swirled away to safety and braced himself. Naruto made a single-hand seal and the gate started to glow. The gate exploded with the wooden doors being blasted away from the stronghold. Every single shinobi inside the stronghold was woken for the sound of the explosion, and surely, moments later a loud siren started echoing through the night. That was enough sign for Mei to order her troops to move forward. "Charge!" Mei yelled as she and all of her troops suddenly jumped out of the mist and started running full speed towards the castle. Not even 5 seconds later and the stronghold was being swarmed by 1,000 fully armed shinobi. Loud explosion and the sound of metal clashing was heard through all of the stronghold. "Mei," Naruto said as he jumped from the walls and rendezvoused with Mei. "Take a few hundred shinobi. Circle the castle and infiltrate from the back gate," Naruto said, and Mei got confused. "There is no back gate," Mei stated. "I made one," Naruto seriously said, and Mei's eye twitched. "It's a small hole. You can fix it later," Naruto explained, and Mei sighed. "Platoon A to D, come with me," Mei ordered, and circled the castle and stormed it from behind, sandwiching the enemy behind 2 fronts. Well, Naruto heard and turned to meet Onkiri shinobi who seemed to be unaffected by the pandemonium running through the base. "We meet at last, Senju Naruto," the shinobi said. "And you are?" Naruto asked, looking intently at the man. He wore the standard kiri with the flak jacket, and pinstriped leg and arm guards. Where are my manners? My name is Toshio and one of newer members of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, Toshio said as he took out a sword from behind his back. It was one big cleaver to make it simple. I see, Naruto said, channeling chakra to his wrist seals, and his old Chikudo popped into existence. I always thought that the Senju clan was overrated. After all, the strongest clan was decimated during the First and Second Shinobi War while the weakest ones lasted, Toshio taunted, but the taunt was met with an emotionless and serious face. Show me what you are worth. Senju Naruto, Konoha no Raijin, son of the Kuroi Senko and grandson of Uchiha Madara, Toshio yelled, running towards Naruto with his cleaver held up high. Naruto quickly analyzed the enemy with his Sharingan and could see that he was nothing than a mere jounin with standard chakra reserves. I guess the swordsman title went over his head, Naruto thought to himself, and thanked the heavens for him having Hinata. Otherwise he would go all god on other people. Toshio brought down his giant cleaver trying to split Naruto on half but only caught Naruto's afterimage. Toshio only knew he missed when his sword hit the ground. Toshio turned around and used the flat side of his sword to block a horizontal slash from Naruto. Chidori Nagashi, Naruto said, and his sword and hands sparkled with electricity. By both swords being made with metal, Naruto's electric attack got transferred toward Toshio and made him spasm. He jumped up and back with his hands smoking. Toshio placed the sword on his back and started going through hand seals. One particular jutsu that Naruto knew all too well. Kirigakure no jutsu, hidden mist jutsu, Toshio said, and the grounds where they were fighting became all covered in mist. This is the end, brat, Toshio said as he disappeared inside the mist. Naruto just shook his head and stayed relaxed in the same place. Why bother moving at all when you can't see half an inch ahead of him? Naruto quickly knew that Toshio was an amateur at the art of silent killing. Naruto could hear him breathing for the love of God. Naruto was getting bored by the fight and decided to end it when Toshio made his move. Die, Toshio yelled as he appeared behind Naruto with his cleaver getting ready to cut Naruto in half. And cut he did, or so he thought as he watched the blade pass through Naruto and exit at the other end. What are you? Toshio yelled. Naruto turned around and locked eyes with him. Toshio stared at his Manjikyu blazing and he never knew that it was the last thing he would ever see. Your end, though I won't kill you. You seem pretty high up in the food chain so you might know some valuable information, Naruto said as his Manjikyu glowed. Toshio was completely absorbed into Naruto's eyes in matter of seconds. Let's get this over with, Naruto said and blurred towards the corridors and halls killing everyone that got in his way. Katan, Goka Mekyaku, Great Fire Annihilation. Raitun, Raryuden, Lightning Dragon. Suetun, Suryuden no Jutsu, Water Dragon, Naruto unleashed Jutsu after Jutsu decimating everything in front of him. No one could stop his onslaught of Jutsu. From gigantic walls of flames to water and lightning dragons. The siege on the stronghold was brief and swift. In a mere hour the stronghold had been conquered. Hashtag with AO, red, green, blue and yellow hashtag. The attack on the other stronghold had also been swift and efficient. Yellow, Minato, had successfully infiltrated the stronghold and proceeded to slam a big Rasengan against the wooden gates. Once the gates were down, Yellow's forces swarmed the castle and quickly captured it with the use of the Hyroshin and some high-level water jutsus. Hashtag with Chojuro, black, brown and purple hashtag. While purple, Hinata, didn't any fancy space-time techniques, she didn't require them to be an extremely effective shinobi. Just with her Byakugan and her extremely accurate aim, coupling that with deadly poisons, she was a force to be reckoned with. Though Purple was supposed to infiltrate the castle, she took a different approach. Purple simply approached the gates from the outside, without no one even noticing her, and simply punched the gates. The wooden gates that were supposed to withstand heavy siege were simply blown from their hinges and crashed into the back of the stronghold. That's one scary woman, Chojuro shakily said while Black, Mito, laughed. Mito did taught Tsunade the basics of super strength, though Tsunade managed to refine it to a whole new level. With brown sand and black shields the life losses were slim to none. Purple lead the attack and they decimated the enemy in a matter of hours. Hashtag next day hashtag. Mei, Ao, Chojuro, and most of the dragons were gathered at the main stronghold, the one Naruto and Mei conquered. The castle had a cheerful ambient. This was the most they ever achieved in almost 2 years of fighting. We did one hell of a progress today, Mei said, and her troops cheered. Just a few more days and everything would be over. We have Naruto and his dragons to thank for, Mei said. You don't ha. Oh, a massive explosion echoed through the grounds, making everything shake from the power. Naruto and the dragons quickly made their way towards the surveillance towers, and they managed to see the location of the explosion, not too far away. That's the medical stations, Mei stated while Naruto realized that Hinata was there doing what she could to heal the injured. Hinata, Naruto yelled and started running since he couldn't sense her marker anymore. The rest of the dragons and Mei run towards the location of the explosion as well. ## medical camps, few minutes earlier ##. Purple was working at the main tent healing the injured. The loss of life during the siege was minimal, but there was always injured shinobi. Hinata was a very good healer and extremely skilled in the mystical palm. Apparently the better your chakra control was, the more efficient was the technique. The bones are in their proper place, give it a few days and you will back to new, Purple said, and the shinobi thanked her. Hinata quickly finished the remaining patients and went for checkup routine on all of them before she decided to leave. Takumi-san, Purple said as she entered the room of the head doctor. I'm leave - Purple was saying but stopped when she saw Takumi's body on the ground in a pool on his own blood. Purple quickly rushed him only to find out he was assassinated if his slit throat was anything to go by. Hinata activated her Byakugan just in time to see a hail of kunais and shurikens being thrown at her. Kaiten, Purple said and started spinning in a blue dome of chakra and blocking every single projectile that was thrown at her. Would you look at that? Now rhetorically asked as she jumped down from her hiding spot, landing in front of Purple smirking. I get to kill a Hyuga, now said grinning. Now, why are doi - Hinata was about to ask what was going on when she looked to Nao's eyes. They were blood red with 3 black tomos. Sharingan, how is that possible? Purple whispered with her mind running a mile per second. You can't be an uchiha, it is not possible. The only remaining uchihas are Naruto, Sasuke, and that Toby fellow, Purple explained, not mentioning Minato's name. I don't know anything about that, Nao said, chuckling as her Sharingan started spinning, gaining a completely new appearance. What was once the standard Sharingan now looked like a vortex, and given the fact that the Sharingan was spinning, it gave the effect of drawing Purple to her eyes. A Manjikyu, Purple said as she broke the trance from looking at her eyes. Yes dear. A eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, you stand no chance, Nao said as she smirked. Nao blurred through hand seals and took a deep breath. Katan, Gakakyu no Jutsu, great fireball technique, Nao said and released a fireball towards Purple. Purple jumped away to avoid and the whole medical tent went up in flames, making it nothing more than a battlefield. Suetun, Sujin Hiki, water wall, Purple said mid-air and released a small water wall to block the flames that decimated the tent. Suetun, Suryuden no Jutsu, water dragon, Purple said as she used the water she expelled from her mouth and formed a water dragon. The dragon rocketed towards Nao, but it was countered by a fire dragon that nullified her attack. You not bad for a medic, Nao taunted as the steam began to spread, lessening its thickness. Purple dashed towards Nao, who smirked and got ready to face the Hyuga in battle. While Nao knew that you should never face a Hyuga in taijutsu, she was an uchiha. Purple and Nao met halfway and began exchanging multiple punches and kicks. They were just trying to get a feel for their opponent. Let's up this, shall we, Nao said as her eyes began to glow. Hinata had no choice but to disable her Byakugan. If Hinata had her Byakugan active, there was no way she could avert from looking at the Sharingan. Amaterasu, Nao said, and Hinata erupted in black flames. Nao smirked but quickly dropped it when Hinata burst at water. Tsutenkyaku, heavenly foot of pain, Purple said as came down from the sky with her leg raised, ready to strike. Nao's eyes widened when the chakra built up in her leg and had no choice. Nao's eyes glowed once again, she jumped up and back, coiling herself as a purple ethereal ribcage appeared around her. Hinata's heel connected and the ground erupted from the attack. Nao was blasted backwards and crashed into the ground, making her Susanoo crack. You really are something else, if I didn't have this you would have won, Nao said as her Susanoo started reforming and completely erased the cracks. Susanoo, Purple stated as the dust cleared. How do you know this power? Nao curiously asked. I know all about the Susanoo and his weakness, Purple stated while Nao took it as an offense to her eyes. The Susanoo has no weakness, it's our ultimate defense, Nao said as her chakra flared. I beg to differ, Purple said, crouching on the ground and going through hand seals. Hijitsu, Mugen no aim, secret technique, endless rain, Purple said, crouching on the ground. Soon enough clouds started gathering and rain started to fall. The Susanoo's weakness is himself. The Susanoo is created of pure chakra and as such can be absorbed, Purple explained, and Nao's eyes widened when her Susanoo began to show signs of starting to melt. However, Nao would have nothing of that and funneled more chakra into her eyes, making the Susanoo regain his balance. Your rain is useless, Nao said, laughing while Hinata shook her head inwardly. The Susanoo already eats lot of chakra, by using my rain I'm making you double the amount required to stabilize it. The bigger the Susanoo, the more chakra it eats. And your chakra reserves are the standard Kage level, you won't last much longer, Purple thought to herself, analyzing the battlefield. Purple suddenly dashed towards Nao, who smirked and braced herself. Nao's Susanoo swung her purple ethereal saber. Purple simply crouched on the ground, making the blade fly by harmlessly above her head. Purple quickly rose from the ground and in a burst of speed she arrived near Nao. Purple cocked her fist back and smashed it against the shield, cracking it. Nao was pissed as she was pushed back by a medic of all people. Nao pushed more chakra into the Susanoo and it began expanding, covering the ribs and starting to form some humanoid form. Nao rose from the ground and her Susanoo started swinging the saber wildly, trying to hit the elusive purple dragon. Suetun, Purple started going through hand seals but was stopped by a burst of black flames right on top of her mask. Purple quickly stopped channeling chakra into her mask and it fell to the ground, revealing the face of one Hyuga Hinata. So I was fighting Hyuga Hinata. Now it all makes sense, Nao stated, shaking her head. No other Hyuga could give me the headache you are giving, Nao said, getting ready to strike once again. While she's using the Susanoo she's restrained to only using that saber, Hinata thought, crouching and absorbing the chakra she stole from Nao's Susanoo. Dokujiri, poison mist, Hinata said and took a deep breath and released a cloud of purple-looking smoke into the area. Shit, Nao said, cursing her luck and taking a deep breath. Nao began swinging the sword wildly, trying to get rid of the damn poison mist. Suetun, Teppadama, water bullet. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shuriken shadow clone, Hinata shouted from multiple directions. Hundreds of water bullets and shurikens rained down of Nao's Susanoo, who buckled from the pressure. Nao was pushing more and more chakra into her shield, trying to sustain it to block all the incoming projectiles. Hinata appeared right in front of Nao and smashed her fist into her Susanoo, making visible cracks appear on the shell. Nao was thrown backwards and crashed into the ground. Nao coughed and held her head in pain just as she saw Hinata coming down from the sky once again. Tsutenkyaku, heavenly foot of pain, Hinata said and smashed her heel into Nao's Susanoo, cracking everything and making a huge crater appear. Hinata jumped back and crouched on the ground, taking a deep breath. You bitch, Nao said, appearing from the dust cloud and nursing her bleeding arm, also taking deep breaths. Nao locked eyes with Hinata and said, petrifying gaze, 1. Hinata was drawn into Nao's eyes as they began to spin, forming a vortex and petrifying Hinata in place. Hinata was frozen in place, but it wasn't a genjutsu. She didn't know what it was, but once she looked into her manjikyu, Hinata was suddenly frozen in place. Now die, Nao sweetly said, dashing towards Hinata with a kunai raised. Nao smiled as she buried the kunai in her chest, killing her. Hinata exploded in smoke and another Hinata rose from the water. Nao turned just in time to see a chakra-pumped fist smashing into her face. Nao was thrown into the ground and Hinata knew she was going to stay down for good this time. Beaten by, pant, some medic, pathetic, Nao said, spitting out blood. If I'm going down I'm taking you with me, Nao said and started laughing as she was making half a tiger sign. Hinata's eyes widened when she saw explosive tags spread around all the camp. Apparently Nao's primary objective was the destruction of the medical camp. Die, Nao yelled and Hinata crouched on the ground and started spinning. Suetun, Kaiten, Hinata said. Hinata was enveloped in a blue dome of churka with water spinning around her as well. Hinata tried to make her Kaiten as flatter as possible so that she could better dissipate the energy of the explosion. Boom! The whole area exploded and became covered in flames. Hinata held on during the explosion, keeping her rotation up as far as she could. Hinata was forced to drop the rotation mid-spin and was blasted away, although not taking the full damage from the explosion. The flames lit up the sky due to the magnitude of the explosion. Once the flames had died down and the dust started to clear, everything was gone. The medical tents, the patients and doctors inside. Everything was vaporized. Hinata rose from the ground. She was a complete mess. She had light burns around her arms and hands, her clothes were singed and half of chest plate armor was destroyed. Hinata sat on the ground taking deep breaths and trying to fight off unconsciousness when she saw a blonde blur. She smiled, knowing very well who that blur was. It was her knight in shining armor. Well, not shining per se, but it was close enough. Naruto-kun, Hinata said, closing her eyes and embracing unconsciousness. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.